Welcome to episode number 69 of the Introvert Biz Growth Podcast, the show where I talk to introverts who grow their business and make a difference. As always, I'm Sarah Senecroce, I'm your host, and I'm so happy that you're spending this time with me today. I have another great interview for you today. But before, I'd like to invite you again to check out the details for the Anxiety-Free Marketing for the Conscious Entrepreneur program, which starts on January 3rd. I'm looking for a small group of business owners who are tired of the mainstream marketing advice that gives us anxiety and who are looking for a more holistic approach to marketing, one that is aligned with our values, with our strong moral principles. We'll be talking about all the topics that we usually cover here on this show, but in more depth. Passion, personal power, people, product, pricing, promotion, and process. Those are the 7 P's of marketing redefined for the conscious entrepreneur. The most thriving businesses nowadays are those who are also passionate about their work. Not only do they feel better, they also make more money. So let's figure out your passion, your why, and then dig deep into your people. And then start integrating that into your communication so that people get you, want to work with you, and are willing to pay more. I invite you to check out this marketing paradigm shift that will help you to finally achieve your true potential of a quiet leader. Go to sarahsenecroce.com/anxiety-free marketing to check out all the details. And now on to today's show. Bo Miller, my guest today, is an INFJ, like myself, author, blogger, podcaster, and teacher. He's also certified Myers-Briggs practitioner and holds a Master's of Arts in Education. He's the host of the INFJ Personality Show and co-host of the Introvert Dear podcast. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Bo. Hi, Bo. How are you today?
Yeah, doing well. Thanks for having me on your show, Sarah.
Well, thank you so much for accepting my invitation. I was really excited, like I mentioned in the intro or in the offline conversation with you. I wasn't, aware of who you are and that you also have a podcast for introverts, which I'll mention later on. But yeah, I was introduced to you by Andy Mort, who's also a fellow guest on this podcast. And you just recently hosted this Quiet Summit? No, Quiet Flow?
Quiet Overflow.
Quiet Overflow Summit. Yeah, a summit for introverts. So I really enjoyed that. And then I started listening to your podcast. So I'm super excited to have you here. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I always read this official bio, right? But those are just kind of like promo bios. So I want to go much deeper. And why don't you tell the audience a little bit about who you are and how you started being an entrepreneur and how being an introverted entrepreneur, how that impacts your business?
Yeah, sure. Well, first, I guess I should say I'm a husband and father. I'm really enjoying those roles. And my business is built on Myers-Briggs personality types. I really enjoy them. And in particular, I help one of those types. So if you're not familiar, there are like 16 personality types. And I tried to niche down based on what I'd learned. And I focused on one type, the INFJ. And most of what I do is helping that personality type. So that's built on, initially it was just blog posts, but I started a podcast and a YouTube channel. So that's the free stuff. And then from there, I offer like coaching and courses and do some affiliate work and other ways of generating income. But that's the business. And it grew out of maybe a dissatisfaction or some of that, and also a pursuit of like wondering what my gifts were and how I was wired. I'm a school teacher as well currently and enjoying that role. But a couple of years ago, I was just wondering, is this the right fit for me? And in doing some self-discovery, I just wanted an opportunity to use communication gifts and to connect with people and to talk type and personality. So that's kind of where the business all came from.
Right. And so how is it for you as an INFJ to have this business? And I'm sure the work you do with your clients is great because you get to talk, go dive really deep into personalities and all of that. But Who Says Business also says promoting your business. And so how does that feel for you as an introvert?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's probably my weakness, honestly. The cool thing about some of these channels that I'm a part of, like YouTube, for instance, is some of that promotion is done for me. I have to worry about making good content that helps people. And then the people who are, end up benefiting do come over to my website and from time to time sign up for coaching. I appreciate those natural forms of connecting. And like the podcast I've done too has been a real plus that way as well, because people who listen to your voice and watch you, as I'm sure you know, Sarah, it builds a connection like nothing else. I mean, my words, I think, can be helpful if they're solving a problem, but there's just something about seeing or hearing someone. So that helps. But honestly, it is a weakness, and I'm pushing myself to grow and sending more emails. The big challenge for me is I just don't want to be, the guy who sends a million emails that aren't necessarily helpful and maybe irritating. So it's always a learning process to know just how to word it and to make sure what I am sharing is potentially helpful and that I'm getting it to the right group, because I try to do segmenting in a way that I'm giving people what they need. I just talked to someone last night about something here in America, AARP, for people who are older in retirement. He said it's bad because they just send you, advertisements, but it's just such a big group. A lot of this stuff is just junk mail. So I don't want to be contributing to that noise.
Right. Yeah. It's such a fine line to find helpful content, but obviously this helpful content, even there, sometimes I'm like, well, yeah, it's helpful for some people, but obviously not everyone on my list. And that's where what you're saying, segmentation, really plays a big role, because, this might be helpful for 10% of your list. Well, do you really have to send it then to everybody? But I do agree, and many guests have said the same thing. It's for us, I think we're so lucky that we're in this age of content, right? Whether it's written content or audio content or video content, because like you say, it's then kind of natural. I'm sure we still have to do something, but it helps to then get people back to your website and hopefully, like you said, sign up for some coaching sessions. Ideally, we just, sit here and get people to come to us, and then we share our gifts, right?
Right.
Yeah. Great. So yeah, you already mentioned a challenge. So kind of this promotion for your business is one of your challenges. What would you say is one of your gifts or strengths as an INFJ specifically, or as an introvert?
This one surprised me. I didn't anticipate this, but I guess there's two. I should back up. One thing I really enjoy doing is just learning. I love to learn and try new things to develop new skills. So that's really been great, because when you're running a business, there are lots of new skills to be developed. Mind you, it's not the detail-oriented skills like managing taxes and making sure the numbers are right. That's what my wife helps me with quite a bit. So I'm thankful for her. Yeah, oh man, I'm so thankful for her. Although I had to learn some of that stuff, but I love just learning the new tools and figuring out how the strategy is going to work out. So that's been really good. But the other thing, especially since I started the podcast, was just building relationships with other people. I didn't think that would be me, because I know that, the extroverted way I've heard that it's done is you just go out and start emailing people and trying to strike up a deal. But inviting people to be on my show, eventually, initially people who had written other books that kind of intimidated me, who supposedly were my competition, and I was trying to beat with my book on Amazon. Finding people who had written similar books, inviting them to be on the show and having conversations was a great way just to build relationships. And that's just done some awesome things for my email list and connecting with others and just moving forward. So I don't know. I think that's probably it. And I'm not going to say that I'm like amazing at it, but it's been neat just getting to know other people, learning from them, and then working together. So I'd say that's probably it.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because oftentimes people probably think, oh, introverts, they're not people. They're not that good at, building relationships, but actually we really are, especially probably INFJs, because we have that extroverted feeling. And so that really helps actually building these deep relationships, not in the traditional way, like you said, going out networking, but just one-on-one where you already know, you share values and you have the similar interests. And it's been the same for me, even though I think I could do much better still with past guests on the show. I just started recently to reach out to them again and just have them back on for just one question. Let's just talk about, for now, marketing with integrity. And sometimes as introverts, we're, kind of reluctant asking for help or, having them on again because you're like, oh, they don't have time, blah, blah, blah. But actually, it really, these are people who definitely have, similar values, definitely have similar interests. So I think, this podcast is the same for me. It's just been amazing. That's
cool.
What I'm also interested in is I had Leslie McDaniel, I think her last name is.
Yeah.
And she's an INFJ coach, I think mostly for women, or actually I don't know, but she's a woman INFJ coach and you're a guy INFJ coach. So what I'm interested to hear is whether you think it makes a difference whether you're male or female INFJ.
Yeah, that's a great question. I've wondered about that as well. I think if you're providing helpful ideas to INFJs at large, it doesn't matter so much. And that's what I tend to do most of the time, just for like personal reasons with family. When I'm doing most of my coaching, at least at this point, it's just with other guys, just because we're meeting one-on-one online, just want to preserve that family integrity. So that's mainly what I'm doing. I think that makes a difference because at least percentage-wise, based on Myers-Briggs stuff, there are fewer male INFJs. I think that's like the rarest type. So there's lots of people to work with. That's a difference. But aside from that, I don't think it makes too much of a difference. I've connected with a bunch of men and women online and had great conversations and really enjoyed them. So not too much that way.
Interesting. Okay, great. Well, I'd like you to take us to an aha moment, some story that you remember where you just all of a sudden this big light bulb went on and you had a big realization, whether in life or in business, related to introversion or not.
Okay. That's such a fun question, by the way. I might have to steal that one.
Sure.
So I'm going to blur two together, and I don't know if they're like moment in times, but just kind of realization along the way. The first was, I told you earlier that I really enjoy learning. And I think when I was starting the business venture, I spent a great amount of time just learning. And it wasn't wrong. I think you kind of have to do that to begin with to some extent. But I think my first year I read it was probably 50 or 60 books. I listened to a lot of them in the car and was just reading all these articles and listening to podcasts and everything, just accumulating all this knowledge. I was writing. I was building up a writing habit. I was trying to write a post each week. And I think I had even started a podcast maybe, but I really wasn't doing too much to build an email list because I was focused on gathering information. And then I had read something from Jonathan Milligan at bloggingyourpassion.com. And he was saying that it's important to not just learn, but then take just as much action as, you're learning. Whatever you gain, you got to put it into practice. And then I think I'd read something similar from Smart Passive Income. Why can I not think of his name?
Pat Flynn.
Pat Flynn, thank you. Pat Flynn, he was talking about just-in-time learning. Like you have this project or this thing you want to do, learn about that, and then put it into practice before you learn about other things. I mean, you can file those articles or those resources away for later, but get this one thing done and learn just what you need to make that happen. So seeing the results I was getting, which weren't that great, I thought I have to change something. And I think that made a big difference because that marked a moment where I changed my strategy. And then fast forward a little bit, when I started a YouTube channel, I think that was I started messing around with it in July 2017, although I'd put up videos before. Really tried to focus on that. And that was uncomfortable for me because I didn't like sitting in front of the camera and I didn't feel like my house was nice enough. And you know what I mean? You're always looking at your background. They're like, people aren't going to like this because my house, nobody cares. But I really worried about that to begin with. worried about the mic quality and everything, but it's been a while. And the first video is just tanked, but I decided to stick with that. This was around the time where I decided to focus on the INFJ personality type. And I think I made a video or two, and they did a lot better than I anticipated. And I decided I was just, like I had put out a podcast and blog post each week, I was just going to make a video each week. And I was so amazed. I think really that more than anything helped to build the list because people started to come and watch. So just consistently creating videos and putting myself out there in a way that was scary at first, that really helped things to grow. And then as it went along, it got less and less uncomfortable and more natural. I had started out just creating like slideshows with like a tiny picture of myself in the bottom left-hand corner or somewhere else on the screen. But in the end, it was less time just to like do a headshot where I was talking to the camera. And that's what I do today. So that was maybe a big aha moment, because when I started to do that, it was just a massive increase for the email list. And it was right now, I think YouTube is one of the biggest sources of traffic you can lock into. It's not the only one, but it's really helped my business.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, and I definitely think it's one of those platforms where most introverts are going to go, I'm going to stay away from that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be on camera. I don't want to, we worry so much about what other people think, right?
Yeah.
And so it's great that you just got started and maybe first, didn't show your head and didn't show your house and all. But then, because you were practicing, eventually you were like, you know what? It's not a big deal. I can, So good for you. And I agree. Yes, YouTube is definitely a big traffic generator. So I assume your podcast is also available on YouTube. Do you stream it to YouTube?
I have the podcast. I just have the podcast on iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play and all those sources. But some of the content that you'll find on YouTube and on the podcast, they're similar, because I'll often take and this is a strategy that actually really helped me too. Like I'll create a YouTube video and then I'll rip the audio from that with just a free tool. And then I will use that in a podcast if I don't have a separate interview. So you can kind of kill two birds with one stone there. So you can find it in both places, but that's kind of by design.
Yeah. I forget what tool it is that I'm using, but I'm using this tool where the podcast then immediately also goes over to YouTube. So whenever I upload a podcast, I think it's not Simple Podcast Press. That's just a plugin. I'll look it up and I'll make sure that I add it to the show notes.
Cool.
That's really useful, because then, I'm not recording video, but at least the audio file automatically gets also published on the YouTube channel. So that's pretty handy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, great. All right. We're getting to the 3 golden nuggets, like I like to call them. So the first one is a personal habit, that something that you do on a regular basis that contributes to your success.
This one is something I'm continually learning and just chipping away at new like a diamond, you can turn it over and see different facets. I'm seeing how to make it happen, but prioritization, I think, is huge. I realize that as you know this, Sarah, with family growing, you have less and less time and you have to choose what's most important.
Right.
So I think just taking some time and planning what is most important and nailing that down and just having it in my mind for the next day, and even long-term, having a long-term map, but then being flexible with that and being okay moving your schedule around and trying new things and just adjusting as life changes has been really big. So I always think of that Stephen Covey illustration with, if you've ever seen it before, I don't know if you had, he has like a fish tank or something, and then he has some sand, he has some pebbles, he has some smaller rocks and some big rocks. And he initially pours, the pebbles and the small rocks and the sand in first, and then tries to fit the big rocks, which represent life priorities in. But they just don't all fit in the jar. But then he reverses the process and puts his biggest priorities in first, the large rocks, and all the little things fit in around it. So I think that's really a great symbol. As I've tried to put in the big rocks and change some things, it's helped me go for it. And I can give you a practical example, not to ramble on, but I love to write. But I was, just in coming to this year, I thought my family needed more time, I needed to spend a little less time on the business, at least at this stage, because my wife's pregnant with our second child, and I'm in the middle of the school year and everything. So at this moment, I'm kind of letting the blog posts go by the wayside. And it's hard because I really do enjoy writing, but I was looking at, the numbers and what content people were consuming and how long it takes me to make it. Most people are watching YouTube videos or listening to the podcast, and I can kind of kill two birds with one stone most of the time there. So I decided just to focus on that this year, and making that the priority has allowed everything else to fit in there too. And some of the sand and pebbles are going to have to go, but I'm not so sad about that anyway. So just being, I think, flexible with that. And then one other thing is just getting up early recently. That's been a big help. I try to get up early and then get in at work and get some stuff done. And that way I can jet home and get other work done later at night, just be with my family, that sort of stuff. So that's been really good.
Right. Yeah. Some really good reminders in there to give yourself permission to, let go of some of the things that don't bring in the results that, that make it worth your while or that you just don't want to spend time on right now. And so, maybe it's the blog posts, because let's face it, if you're getting much more traffic via YouTube, a blog post takes a long time to write. So giving yourself that permission to say no. Actually, the free download on my website is some email templates on how to say no, because introverts are still always struggling with that, right? Like, we're people pleaser. We want to make everybody happy, and so sometimes here you're saying no to yourself, which is not easy either. But if it's saying no to another person because you just want to prioritize and make sure you have enough time for the things that are really important to you. And it's not always easy. Just this morning, my neighbor invited us for a Sunday brunch, and we have no other plans on Sunday, but I'm invited to a birthday party Saturday night. And, this doesn't happen every weekend. So I know I'm going to be exhausted after, making small talk and talking. And I don't know, maybe we'll even go out dancing. I'll be just toast on Sunday. So it's not going to work. Let's do it next week. But it's not easy because you're like, what are they going to think? Saying no, setting priorities, very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
Right. What about an internet resource, something that you use online that you'd like to share?
Cloud App. I don't know if you've heard of it or not, but I've been really enjoying it recently. It's just a tool that you can use to snag images and annotate over them. Nothing new there. You can also grab videos or make a GIF. And the neat thing is, as soon as you do that, the tool will save your image or your video or whatever in the cloud instantly and give you a link so that you can just pop it in. So it's really good for, like, if you're emailing somebody, instead of just sending them an email, you can send them a personalized video. Or if you're working with tech support or somebody, you can just grab a snag of what's the problem. If you have a more complex idea you're trying to relay and your words aren't doing well, like when Andy and I were talking, I was trying to work through some bigger ideas of flow. So I drew it out and just kind of talked through it and then sent him an image during the Quiet Overflow Summit. So that sort of stuff is really easy to communicate via video if that's up your alley. But right. I mean, even for images and for GIFs and everything, it's a pretty cool service too. And it's called Cloud App. And I have to say this too. I don't know if you, Sarah, if you use AppSumo, if you've heard of them, but I get a lot of
them. Yeah.
Okay. I don't look at everything they share, but they have a lot of really good deals. And I snagged Cloud App and one of their deals. I think it might have been like $50 for forever, where normally it's like a monthly service. So I appreciate that they have these like one-time deals or whatever, and you can save money that way.
I do too, but sometimes it's just overwhelming because you just want to buy everything they have because
oh my goodness, yeah.
So I'm just kind of blocking them out right now because otherwise I would just keep shopping there.
It's probably wise. I have to talk to my wife. I'm like, do I need this? Or most of the time it's no, but some of the things that have come along, like here's another one I really like. Get Stencil is just an image tool, and I had been paying like, oh man, it was like $20 a month, maybe more than that. And then I paid like $100 for one time, and now it's free forever, and I use it all the time. So sometimes it's worth it, but if it's too much noise, it's better to block it out.
Yeah, exactly. I use a free tool called Use Loom, which also lets you make videos and just kind of anything that's basically in the browser you can comment on and create videos. I don't think it does pictures, even though you could probably just open a picture and then talk over it. But I definitely want to check out Cloud App and see what the differences are.
Yeah, Loom is really cool. I was looking at that. And actually, I think there are more and more services that are giving you these abilities. The Cloud App is kind of unique in that you can use it on anything on your computer. So you don't just have to be online or on the internet or on some kind of browser.
Yeah. Loom is actually building a desktop app. I'm
Are they really?
reading list. So that will be really interesting. Yeah.
Oh, nifty. So you might not even want to look at Cloud App because you'll have it free. That's the way to go.
Yeah. Well, we never know. Maybe Loom will start to charge as well. But
that's true. I got to say one more thing about Cloud App that I've enjoyed. I use this more at school because I'm using this tool there. But if you have a file you want to share and you just don't want to have to upload it or drag it or whatever, you just drag it over top of the Cloud App icon, and then it gives you a link and you share it. It's like instant. So that's pretty good too.
Yeah. Sounds great. Does the other person also have to have a Cloud App account or no?
No, all they need is the link that you share with them, which is pretty nifty.
That's great. Yeah. All right. What about a book that you would recommend and why?
Yeah, I love books. This was kind of hard, but there was one that jumped to mind, The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. He just talks about the value of choosing to do the work before you each day and doing it well. He says it's like an easy choice, but a hard choice. Like we all have that choice every day to do the work or to not do the work. But if you choose on a consistent basis, it ends up giving you momentum and you will go places. So I really enjoyed the message of that book. He has a couple great illustrations in there, but it's just kind of an encouraging read. He talks about some old business principles like the Pareto principle and the 80-20 rule and Parkinson's law and all that good stuff. But I just think it's a great book and worth checking out.
Great. I'll make sure to link to it. Wonderful. We already kind of talked about marketing for your own business and how you prefer content versus, pushy emails. So what I want to ask you is about this word integrity, because I've been using it more and more lately. Before we used authenticity a lot, and that kind of became this buzzword that people didn't enjoy anymore. So now I'm using integrity, and it's a word for me that I just go, yes, and so I want to hear from my guests what they think about, marketing with integrity or business with integrity. So what thoughts come up when you hear that?
Yeah, it actually reminds me of a book by Lauren Sapalo, who's also an INFJ writer, and she was. I don't know if have you checked it out? Have you heard of her?
I loved her book, and I'm in touch with her, so she will be on the podcast.
Okay,
maybe even before yours goes live. Hopefully, I've been delaying twice already. My fault. So definitely look forward to talking to her because she has that great book. Was it called? What's the title? You remember it?
I think it's Firefly Magic, the one that she wrote on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it's actually about marketing for introverts and integrity and all of that, right?
Yeah, because I think that's what she talks about in the first chapter. So I'll leave it at that. I'll let that for the other show. But I think that's a great word to use. And it's tough because, it varies what that looks like for you based on your personality. But I think we as introverts don't want to inundate people with information that's not helpful to them because we know how that makes us feel. So for me, I think it's a balance because there are always going to be people on your email list or however you connect with them, social channels or whatever else, that are going to hear your messages that may not like them or may not need them at the time. But then there's going to be people there that do as well. So part of it is just pushing myself out of my comfort zone. But one thing I've been trying to do is not be overly salesy. Like I try to be to the point and always helpful in sharing resources and trying to remember too that, I get a lot of emails from people, as I'm sure you do, Sarah. Like it's easy for your inbox to fill up and for it to be overwhelming. And people often send more emails than I actually want to read. But some of those emails are helpful. And I'm glad that they sent them because I do follow through on some of the resources. And some in particular have been super helpful. So I think there's an aspect to putting yourself out there and realizing part of your following list just isn't going to be interested, at least not that time. And that's okay. So it's always a balance to know like, hey, I'm going to send more than this person's probably going to want, and I probably should push myself to do that. But I don't need to send as much as everybody else. I don't need to send like 5 emails a week. I don't need to send like 3 emails for closing on the last day, because I think it's knowing your audience too. Like I think that would be very irritating for the INFJs who are on my list. So that sort of thing, I think helps with integrity, just being sensitive to the people that you're working with.
Yeah. Great closing. Thank you. My last question is always a mindful ending. And I want to ask you what you are grateful for this week or today, Bo.
I'm a person of faith. I'm a follower of Jesus. So I was last night, it's funny because it's Halloween in the United States, but I was just at my church and we were reading Colossians. So I was just thinking about who Jesus was and what he's done in my life. And that I think is something that I'm super grateful for. And also the family that he's given me. I just have so much to be grateful for. And I was listening to this guy say, I know that I'm a person who is in a fallen world because I can't even really appreciate all the incredible things around me like I really should, because I'm inundated with so many things that I don't deserve. I'm so much better than I don't deserve. And even something beautiful like the Swiss Alps, I can look at for a week and then like somehow satisfy myself with like TV after that from time to time. And that's just ridiculous because you have this incredible beauty. So I think just being awakened to all the incredible things that are around us in this world and taking the time to stop and appreciate them and to know who made them. At least that's what it is for me.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. We often don't, it's again, permission. We don't give ourselves permission to stop and appreciate the little things. Like right now, I'm looking out my window. I see a little bird sitting there looking in. It's just like, wow, it's amazing. Who are you, bird? Listening in on our conversation. So yeah, great. Thank you so much, Bo. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time. And as we said, let's stay in touch, okay?
Yeah, sounds great, Sarah. Thanks. It was a pleasure, and I really enjoyed being on your show.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode of the Introvert Biz Growth Podcast. You can find out more about Bo Miller at ispeakpeople.com. Make sure to check out his website. He has a great download for INFJs, so a great ebook that I highly recommend you check out on ispeakpeople.com. You'll find this episode's show notes at sarahsanacroce.com/episode 69. And if you're listening to this show on a mobile device, just click on the description and you'll actually find all the clickable links in there. Also, make sure to check out sarahsanacroce.com/books, where Mara, my VA, has created a beautiful compilation of 20 of the favorite books of my past podcast guests. So head over there to sarahsanacroce.com/books and grab it so you can add some new books to your Kindle reading list for the quiet evenings. This is Sarah Sanacroce signing off from the Introvert Biz Growth Podcast. Remember, you need to use your unique introverted superpowers in order to make a difference. Talk to you soon.